Hey everybody, this is Jeff from Build an Aquarium Workshop, bringing another video to you, and we are looking at my 75-gallon Tanganyikan Cichlid tank. Alright, had a recent comment about this, and it was on an older video. That video was on the Neolamprologus trichocephalus, and I had mentioned in that video that I wasn't trying to breed any of the fish, and I had bought one of each type of fish. And I think there was just 4 Lamprologus species in there, and there's 5 now. I just added a Neolamprologus burchardi. There he is, and he is doing very, very well. The dynamic in the tank changed a little bit. He's kind of the number 2 guy now, then the Kendallii. And there's a little bit of fighting still left here and there, but not much. He's been in this tank now for like 2 months, something like that. All right, anyway, so the comment made on that older video was about crossbreeding, that all I was going to do, all that was going to happen in this tank was that these fish were going to crossbreed. Well, that is an unfair statement. It is a hasty generalization, and I'll tell you why. First of all, watching my videos, I really don't know, and again, this is an older video. I'm not sure that all the fish were, at that time, it's quite a while ago, if they were sexually mature. But the first thing you'd want to know is, hey, are there males and females? At the time, there were only 4 fish. Now there's 5. So we'll just use the 5 as an example. Some of these fish are hard to distinguish. Hey, looking at this trichocephalus, or even this burchardi, or any of these fish, can anybody right now, Tanganyikan Cichlid fans, I'm talking to you especially, those who have dealt with Tanganyikans, who have been breeding them especially, can you tell if I have a male or a female? And, if they were in a group, it would be much easier to tell. But when you have these, onesies, and you're looking at them through a video, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell, how big these fish are. Why anybody would make that statement is beyond me. Because the first thing you'd have to know is if there's any males and females. Because if they're all male or they're all female, then there's not going to be any breeding period, right? Let alone crossbreeding. All right, but so what is crossbreeding? Some of you are going, I don't know, I don't get it. What is crossbreeding? It's also known as hybridizing, right? Hybridization. And crossbreeding is when you take 2 closely related species and breed them. Now, that's all over the cichlid world and in the lakes. It is, also is an explanation for Tanganyikan, the early hybridization, and there's a whole evolution there. And this person was mentioning the lake, and we're not talking about the lake. This aquarium is not Lake Tanganyikan, and we don't have the benefit of thousands and thousands of years of evolution. So we're just talking about, hey, these 5 fish in here, are they going to crossbreed? Now, is that a possibility? Yes. Will it? My opinion is probably not. And I've had 49 years of experience with these fish, or maybe not 49 years with Tanganyikan cichlids, but in the tropical fish hobby, but close to that in dealing with Tanganyikans and breeding them and having all sorts of them. And so I decided, hey, to be fair, let's do a little research, And so I saw that there's charts out there. There's a chart tells you which Lamprologians and other Tanganyikan cichlids are related, closely related to each other. Okay, I don't know who made the chart. I don't know how accurate it is. I looked at many websites, and of course even the forums. The forums are a lot of amateur hobbyists, so, do they know what's really, really going on? Maybe some of them do, maybe some of them don't. When you start getting into talking about crossbreeding Tanganyikan cichlids, it is a huge no-no, taboo subject. Can you imagine going on a breeder list and going, hey, Lamprologus species, that's all you see. And you're like, I want to buy a Lamprologus species. Well, without a picture, you're probably like, I don't know what that is. And this person was talking about hard and fast rules, which I think is quite funny because by looking at this tank and saying, oh, well, you're just going to promote crossbreeding between these Lamprologians is unfair because that could happen, but the probability is low. So first thing I mentioned, are there any males and females? All right, let's get past that. Let's say there were males and females, Let's say that Lepidiolamprologus attenuatus and the Lepidiolamprologus kendallii, one was a male and one was a female. I think I'd have pretty good chances. Now, when I bred the Kendallis, they don't like this rock, this lace rock. It's very rough, you can see. They like smooth surfaces. So I used to get those clay pots that were made, not a regular clay pot, but they were completely enclosed like a drum with an opening, and I'd hide them in the crevices in the rocks here and there. And, I would sometimes create an overhang, and I would, also put like rocks in front of the entrance if it was too big, if that hole was too big. And sure enough, when I did that, boom, the Kendalleyes, were no longer just looking around. They picked it. They picked one of the caves and were like, oh yeah, this is where we're going to breed. And I did get some offspring out. This is back in the 90s. And I have to say, those, that's one of the, brings up a good point. Now, reasons why a lot of these fish aren't crossbreeding, and it's less likely for Lake Tanganyikans than maybe Lake Malawi or Lake Victoria, so forth. The reason why is because of the specific behaviors. What do I mean by specific behaviors? Well, we have the first one, breeding. Number one, breeding behavior, right? Specific breeding behaviors. So you have Tanganyikan cichlids that are, monogamous, polygamous. You have the ones that breed in harems. You have them breeding in caves or crevices. You have them breeding in shells. You have them breeding, the substrate spawners. You look in the lake and you see these big craters, and so there are different ways to breed. So that's preventing a lot of these fish that might be lamprologenes, but their breeding habit is different, and that's preventing them from wanting to crossbreed. Okay, that's number one. Number two, size. I had a Lamprologus ocellatus in this tank at one time, really briefly. It was a 3/4 inch female, and the Kendallei at that time was about 2.5 inches, maybe getting closer to 3 inches. And after a couple of mad dashes at the ocellatus was close to its shell and would just run in there, and it took forever to come back out. I was really, really afraid, and I took that fish out immediately and put it back down in the tank below because it was just going to be food. So size can prevent crossbreeding. The Kendallei, I can imagine a Kendallei with they got big mouths. They're going to eat anything they can. With a multifasciatus breeding. And I'm not saying that there aren't fish out there that are a big difference in size. I kept Lamprologus calyptrus. Males are like 3 times the size, but calyptrus is not a predatory cichlid. Hence, its designation is not Lepidiolamprologus. So, yes, the Kendallei is a predatory. It's in its nature. And so, for size, it wants to eat. It will eat a multifasciatus before it will crossbreed with it, or any of those small shell dwellers. Anything can fit into its mouth. So size. Feeding habits. There's another one. You got feeding habits. You have herbivores, right? You've got piscivores. You've got omnivores, And so that could prevent fish from crossbreeding as well. And as we mentioned with the Kendallei, it's predatory nature. So it's going to eat the fish before it wants to breed with the fish. That's, in its nature there. Whereas other fish, not so much. And that Attenuatus, he's also predatory. He's that long tubular fish, and he doesn't have that big of a mouth, So maybe, and the Attenuatus have been known to breed, in between shells, within larger shells. So would that crossbreed with a shell dweller? Some of the shell dwellers get pretty big. I mean, it would probably, it could. And a big, huge factor, aggression. Aggression's another reason why you're not going to see a lot of crossbreeding, and that is because these fish are so aggressive. They see each other as food competitors, and the way they eat is different. The two Lepidiolamprologus in this tank, they're lightning fast, and they hit foods like you wouldn't believe, and it aggravates and annoys the Tritocephalus, who's a slow, graceful eater. He's constantly chasing them around. If you've seen in my videos, it gets angry because it's not getting food, and these fish are darting around all over and getting the food, as well as a couple of the other fish, right? So fish are aggressive because of territory, because of feeding, and also even selection of mates. But that's not an issue in here because we only have one of each. We don't have several. But so those are some reasons why in the aggression category. So you got 4 things I just mentioned why these fish are not crossbreeding. Now this tank is 2.5, 3 years old. These fish are sexually mature. There's no sign of them that they're going to crossbreed. The closest two would probably be the Attenuatus and the Kendallei. They're both Lepidiolamprologus. I don't know that Kendalleis breed in shells. Of course, you Tanganyikan people, shout out at me, put it in the comment. Yes, they do. I've never seen that. I didn't have an experience with that. I use that pot, like I told you. And but could I, if I wanted to breed them, then yeah, I would be putting in smooth rocks and probably those clay pots that are designed for breeding cichlids. They work wonderfully, and I would be hiding them in there. I'd probably put some bigger shells in there if I really wanted to get the two Lepidolapidologos to breed. And that's assuming that I have a male and a female, and I'm not convinced that I do, because they're so hard to sex, you know. There you go, folks. If you're a Tanganyikan Cichlid fan, you know a lot about Tanganyikan Cichlids. PhDs out there would be great, man. I mean, they could probably, you know, maybe settle this, maybe not, you know. I think the right way to comment, though, and this goes out to the person who made that hasty generalization that, oh, your fish are just going to breed, is that you'd want to say that, you know, you have your specific example of maybe something that you crossbred, and that, hey, you know, you got Lamprologus species, maybe these two are closely related, so there's a possibility of crossbreeding, and you know, and again, that puts a question of, you know, do you care about crossbreeding? And yeah, I do. I don't want these fish to crossbreed. You know, I'm not interested. Maybe some of you are, and that's okay. But I'm not. So my whole goal was not to do any breeding, because it's just high maintenance. It's a lot of work. I did do it with the ocellatus, and it was a lot of work. I don't have a lot of time, and even though I've bred over the decades, and it's very challenging and rewarding. It's fun. It's exciting, but yeah, I just don't have the time to do it. I maintain several tanks, and I'm not looking to breed anything. The only thing I'm looking to propagate is my corals, you know, in my reef tank. I've got 2 reef tanks. That's it. Other than that, I'm not that interested in raising babies. It's just so much work. All right, folks, so I ran this video a little long. Now, I want, again, comments, like and subscribe, you know. All right, folks, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.